were talking about Oddbox, and he said, "Oh, it's actually quite amazing what you've done. Uh, you there's so much potential. You could take it bigger. Have you thought about raising investment?" Yeah, so hi James, I'm Emilie. I'm one of the co-founder of Oddbox. So Oddbox is we're a purpose-led business fighting food waste primarily at farm level. So the way we do that is by working directly with fresh produce suppliers, and we rescue produce which are at risk of going to waste, either because they don't meet supermarket specification, so either too big, too small, slightly misshapen cosmetic imperfections, or else are surplus. So there's too much of it, grown too fast, too quickly, and there's not even enough demand. And so our model is actually a veg box subscription model. So very much supply driven. So people don't know what they are going to get in their box. That means we can take advantage and help the growers who have surplus of something, and people get the convenience of getting seasonal produce delivered to their door, and the excitement as well of kind of different types of produce that they might not usually buy. In addition to the fact that they know that they have a carbon positive impact. So with every box, they know that they're actually reducing their impact on the planet, because all these produce which were grown where a lot of the resources have gone into growing this produce are actually rescued from being wasted.
And from an outsider's point of view, it's not immediately obvious that this was a problem or an issue, and now companies like yourself are really highlighting this. It's obviously something that needs to change. So it's great to see what Oddbox are doing. So how did you first come across this issue, and how did you come up with the way of solving it, if you like?
Yeah, so actually food waste is quite a lot less known compared to plastic waste as a contributor to climate change. And actually, food waste is a bigger contributor to climate change than plastic waste. Um, and so my background is not at all in fresh produce, nor is it in sustainability. So my background is actually in finance. I worked in the corporate sector, and then I wanted to do something with more purpose. So I moved to the charity sector, but again, as director of finance and operations. And so I'm originally from the north of France. My grandparents were potato farmers, and we've always grown with a big garden, growing our own produce. So I've got quite a good understanding of seasonality, of um, of kind of what it takes to grow your own food, and the way it should taste when it's grown in season. And when I came to the UK 10 years ago, there was a bit of kind of excitement of the fact that actually you can find everything all year round, which is amazing. So you can get raspberries all year round, but it doesn't necessarily taste that great if you get them in winter. And so, plus everything is overpackaged, everything looks kind of the same, so it feels a bit kind of it doesn't feel really real, in a sense that it doesn't feel natural the way it's supposed to be when it comes from the ground and imperfect. And so I started doing a bit of research in terms of why that was the case, that there was so many differences between the French retail market and the UK retail market. And that's when I came across the issue of food waste. And at the same time, there was actually a campaign by a French supermarket around imperfect fruit and veg, with a big PR campaign, and they were trying to promote selling imperfect fruit. And and I looked. So I contacted a few fresh produce growers, a few people in the industry, to get a bit more of an understanding. And I also realized that there were two startups in the US who had started something very similar to Oddbox. And I thought, oh, I'd love to buy imperfect fruit and veg. Is there a veg box scheme here in the UK which does that? And I couldn't find a similar model. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity, and that's kind of how the idea for Oddbox came about. So a bit of the issue, but also realizing that actually something else had started in a different country, and that there might be a market in the UK for the same thing.
Absolutely. So a very purpose-led business then. And having that purpose right at the core of everything you do, how has that made it easier when making business decisions and commercial decisions? Is it easier when you've got that North Star of what the company's all about?
I think it makes it easier in some ways. It makes it more difficult in other ways. So, but I guess because I've got a finance background, I've always had quite kind of a commercial mindset, and uh, for me, it's always been about being able to balance both and not choosing one or the other. So our model has always been we need to be financially viable. So in terms of when we set up our pricing at the start, we thought, okay, so looking at the competition, uh, we want to be cheaper because we want to make it more affordable. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we cover our costs. But we also want to pay the growers a fair price. So it was kind of with these different pricing dynamics, how do we make it work? And finding ways around that. So in terms of the logistics, that was kind of one of the trickiest parts of that puzzle because last mile delivery is extremely expensive. So the way we kind of worked around that was so initially we tried to find drivers who would be able to deliver the number of boxes we needed to have delivered within a certain number of time, and uh, and because London is very congested, we couldn't find kind of a way of delivering that many boxes within an hour. What we realize is that actually it's a lot less congested at night. And so from the start, we've been delivering our boxes overnight. And that means that from kind of an environmental point of view, it's a lot more eco-friendly because um, the vans don't sit around for a long time. Uh, but also financially, they, each van can deliver more boxes within the same number of hours. So it works on both sides. So it's always been for us, how do we find something which kind of works on both sides? And sometimes you have to compromise. So our delivery partner delivers with kind of diesel vans because it's not financially viable to use electric vans right now. But we have a commitment from them that by 2025 they will be fully electric. So it's kind of are there things that actually we can't do right now, but can we commit to do that in 5 years' time when there will be a lot more availability of electric vehicles at a cheaper price?
Okay, amazing. And I suppose when you come to think of it, there's almost two sides of it. And again, with the logistics, is one of them is attracting new customers and figuring out the logistics on that side. But also, there's obviously the produce side as well. So getting in touch with the farmers and striking deals with them. So tell me a bit about that process.
Yeah, so we thought that it would actually be quite easy. So, so at the beginning, I did a lot of cold calling fresh produce suppliers, wholesaler. We went to visit suppliers at the wholesale market, so New Covent Garden Market, Spitalfield Market, and we didn't get the welcome we were expecting. Because at the time uh, nobody knew about us, we didn't know the language of fresh produce, so we were not talking in their language. Uh, and also, we wanted very small quantities, so they were just not interested. There had been people before us who had the same idea, so the idea for Oddbox is not a new idea. So some people had the same idea of taking produce, surplus and kind of out of spec produce and doing something with them. And also we thought that they would be able to take care of the logistics and send us boxes. So it was a lot of convincing. We managed to find a few suppliers at the wholesale market initially, and then we recruited. So our first, the first person we recruited was actually somebody who knew about the sector, who had been working in a fruit pack house, and he helped us build our supplier network. But it was a lot of driving to the supplier to collect a few boxes. Uh, Now we work with over 100 different suppliers, mainly in the UK, but we also get produce from outside of the UK, which are kind of surplus or out of specs.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And so you get the first few suppliers on board. Obviously, you've got a few customers at this point as well. What was the point, the turning point where you realized, you know what, we could turn this into a real business and could scale this up? What was that point?
So I think it came pretty late in our journey. So at the start, we thought, let's try it out. So we distributed a few flyers in our neighborhood. We were doing everything ourselves. So I was still working full time at the time. So we were packing on initially on Saturday early morning, then after that Friday overnight, delivering Saturday morning. And One day we had so we were part of the NatWest accelerator, so kind of being amongst other entrepreneurs. But I think the turning point was actually so I started a business with my husband. So and we kind of we're still running it together. Was We went on holiday to France, and one of my cousins actually started his own business, and we were talking about Oddbox, and he said, "Oh, it's actually quite amazing what you've done. Uh, you There's so much potential. You could take it bigger. Have you thought about raising investment?" And we hadn't really thought about raising investment. We were in kind of maybe a bit of an old-fashioned mindset of let's just spend the cash we have. So a bit of our own cash, and also kind of whenever. So we've been kind of revenue generating from the start. So whatever money we were making, kind of investing it in marketing. Which so it was very little. It was kind of a lot of local marketing, and that's when we thought yes, actually, there's potential, and the more we started to speak with other entrepreneurs in terms of where they were in their journey when they raised investment, the more we realized that actually we had quite a lot of traction, and we were at a point where we could convince angel investors of uh, that they should invest in Oddbox. And then we did mix of angel and crowdfunding. So we got also a lot of our customers to invest in Oddbox.
Yeah. And going through that process, what were the real hurdles there? Anything you would do differently if you were going back through that now?
Um, so I think we probably would try to raise earlier. I think what was difficult is because we didn't have a network at all. Because we didn't study, so Deepak is originally from India. So we didn't study here in the UK. Our professional network or kind of investor network was very limited. So I think we probably um, uh, would try to kind of create more of a network early on. So I think it's quite important because nobody in the investor network knew about us when we started going to them. So we used a company to help us access these investors. What we realized, so initially we thought we could just do crowdfunding. We didn't know that we had to have raised at least half from angel investors before doing crowdfunding. One thing which helped us a lot was that at that time we already had over 1,000 customers when we did our crowdfunding campaign, and we had 200 customers who invested in Oddbox. That meant that our crowdfunding campaign was really successful. So because it was easy, we had their email address, so it was easy to let them know about our crowdfunding campaign. And because they were getting a box on a weekly basis, they were already really invested in our mission.
Absolutely. And then fast forward to today or post funding, life looks very differently in terms of you have a full team now behind you, many more customers. So how's that affected your role in the business as the founder? How's that progressed?
Yeah, so at the start, we were kind of doing a bit of everything. So, and we did another funding round in early 2020, so a bigger VCT round. Um, we're we've grown a lot with COVID being a food delivery business, and in just a year we've doubled our headcount. So we've grown from 25 to now 60 people, and we're going to continue to grow. So um, we've always been behind in terms of the recruitment, and what we're realizing is that actually uh, as founders, so our role needs to continue to be the face of Oddbox. So there's a big external role that we need to continue to play. I think we also need to kind of continue being the voice of the customer, um, because that's something which is easy to do, and when it's a small team, everybody kind of speaks to the customers, everybody is close to the customer. As the team grows, people get removed from the customer, and it becomes kind of numbers and facts and data, and it's less about uh, really kind of trying to understand why people buy our box. What is that emotional connection? And I think as founders, that's really kind of what we need to continuously bring. So continuously speak to customers and continuously make sure that we have that we're very customer centric in the team. But also our role is also about delegating. So because my background is in finance, I've been doing kind of a lot of the financial oversight for quite a while. We are now recruiting for FD, so it's very much kind of how do we delegate and um, and get more removed from the day to day, and our role moves to being really focused on the vision and the vision strategy and the culture. So making sure that we maintain that culture, being involved in quite a lot of the recruitment, but also um, making sure that we build the team and we think about what is needed for the future.
Perfect. And obviously, you've had quite a growth story over the past sort of 5 or 6 years, and you touched on it slightly there. But what are the big goals for this year, for 2021?
Yeah. So in 2020, so we've accelerated our growth compared to our plan, kind of quite a lot thanks to COVID. We were only in London. We expanded to the southeast of the UK. So the plan for 2021 is to go kind of more in the Midlands and up north to kind of continue our geographic extension. We're also looking at whether we can potentially diversify our range, and whether there are things we could add in our boxes. Again, always around food waste and rescuing produce at risk of going to waste. Um, so that, and also kind of one of our big objectives is how do we kind of have an impact beyond what we do as Oddbox. So being more of a catalyst for change, so creating more of a community of food waste fighters, um, and how do we help people kind of understand really the link between food waste and climate change, and help them on their sustainability journey. So what else can we do um, for them beyond just buying Oddbox?
Perfect. And just to finish off, then, so for people listening to this, where can they find out more about both yourself and Oddbox?
So on our website, oddbox.co.uk, Instagram, Facebook, and all other social media places.